it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier in terms of people liking to compartmentalize the legal aspects of their business. Putting it off, don't have the time, don't have the money, whatever it may be. And really, that presents a big problem because a strong legal foundation is really what keeps you profitable.
Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the Networking with Michelle show. If this is your first time, I am your host for the day, for the hour, Michelle Gomez. I'm always excited to be here with you, and I hope your week is serving you well. Today's guest is Casey Handy. This is actually a good colleague of mine here in Houston, and we have jumped on the phone to give you a great episode. So a little bit about Casey. I met her through the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, I want to say about 2 years ago. And then we sat down for lunch. But even in this conversation, I learned something new about her. So I thought that was brilliant. And she's an attorney. She's a business attorney as well as intellectual property, and she goes into that. And this is a great episode, y'all. Once again, I know we have a lot of budding entrepreneurs here, and she works with us, creative entrepreneurials, what she likes to call right brain millennials. I love it. And she shares her journey as well as things that we need to look out for, especially for a lot of us. We like to snag pictures from Google Images and other websites. And we talk about, what are the legal aspects of online photos, especially for those that do blog. They're a blogger or happen to have a blog on their website. We also talk about how to protect ourselves from on the personal versus the business side. And probably one of my favorite parts of this episode are what are the 3 signs to let us know our bottom line is at risk? And Casey has put together a brilliant PDF for us, so that would also be in the show notes. And hey, if you're in business, oh my God, the way she outlines this, if you're in business, you need help, right? And the beauty of it, if you haven't started your business yet, these are the things that you can place in order to avoid any pitfalls. And of course, if you need help or before you get started, you can reach out to her. It doesn't matter if you're in Houston because she works with a lot of people online as well. One thing she said that I really, really liked, she said, a strong legal foundation keeps you profitable. And I could be on the opposing side as I have a finance background, because I always think it's the money, right? It's the accounting side. But at the same time, I do think they go hand in hand. And I just wanted to share that with y'all. And I hope you catch it before the interview. But a strong legal foundation keeps you profitable. And I think that's so important because there's a difference between hustling and entrepreneurship. There is a difference between hustling and having a business. And we can get into the semantics of self-employed versus business owner or entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. But there is a difference between hustling and having a business, right? So, hey, it's all about getting the foundation in order on the legal side as well as the financial side. And this episode is brought to you by Xero, the accounting software that can help you get the accounting side taken care of. So if you're looking to start with that, get your legal stuff in order with Casey, get your financial side in order with Xero, you can go to michellegomez.com/Xero, that's Xero, and you can get that promo code for 30% off starting today. So without further ado, Casey Handy Smith. Hey, good people. Welcome back to the Networking with Michelle show. Today's guest, a good friend of mine, is Casey Handy Smith. She is the founder of C. Handy Law, a boutique law firm dedicated to educating and serving creative entrepreneurs and entertainers. So, Casey, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Michelle, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you are an attorney. How did you get started?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I work with creative entrepreneurs in the areas of business law and intellectual property. I have a creative background myself. I'm a classically trained pianist, and so I have always had this kind of passion and love for music. And as I was, kind of going through school, I also realized how much I loved kind of analyzing, reading, and writing, and things like that. So I was looking for a way to kind of merge my passion with music, with my skill set, I guess, of my writing and analytical skills. And so I met a professor in college who was an entertainment attorney, good mentor of mine, and I started taking courses in his program, the music business program, and I just really fell in love with the coursework. I particularly gravitated to the intellectual property courses, and simultaneously I was also interning with the law firm back home where I was working with in the intellectual property department. So at the same time, I was learning about patents and trademarks and the copyright stuff. So I just really loved kind of that intellectual property component of the music business more so than some of the other coursework I was taking in the music business classes. And so just getting into law for me was a way for me to, like I said, kind of bridge my passion for music with my analytical abilities, because I know that a lot of creatives, like a lot of people in my family who are very highly creative, don't necessarily have the bring in that business component or that business piece. So really, like you mentioned, educating is a big part of my law practice to really be able, to help creatives see ways that they can actually profit from the things that they.
Yeah, I definitely agree. However, did you plan on being a professional piano player, or were you looking like, okay, maybe I need a different route?
So actually, what's funny is when I was 15, I thought I was going to be like a music producer. Like I really was like, I'm going to be a producer. Like I'm going to be in the studio all day. Like this is my life. Because like growing up, music was like all I did. Like literally go to school, come home and get on the piano, listen to music, playing around, with different different music and everything, trying to piece stuff together. So I wanted music to be a part of my life.
Gotcha.
But when I got to college, I didn't really want to, I guess, major in music performance, because I knew that I had other things I was also interested in, like politics and really writing, like creative writing. So I bit from being all about music, since that's what I've really always been about, right, my whole life, and decided to kind of explore some other things in college. And so that's when, as I mentioned, I met that professor who, brought me into those courses, and in political science is what I ultimately graduated with a degree in from college. So.
Okay. Now, when it came to, you graduate from law school, you're this attorney, sounds, glamorous and everything. Did you have, I guess, a corporate gig, or did you start your law firm right away?
So I technically started my firm right away. But for a while, I was actually working as of counsel with a larger law firm that I had interned with while I was in law school.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a good segue transition for me to not out there. I always knew I wanted to have my own practice because I always knew I wanted to work for myself. So
Gotcha.
even while I was in law school, I was taking steps and doing things to get my own practice kind of off the ground. But I'm just really grateful for the mentor that I had in the firm that I was interning with, while I was in law school, because she really allowed me to, work there, get some more experience, have a steady paycheck, right? and while still trying to build my own thing.
Right. What do you consider a creative entrepreneur, or who do you help specifically?
So a creative entrepreneur is really just anyone in kind of like, I guess, a creative based industry. So, or not even so much a creative industry, but maybe even a traditional industry, but is doing some kind of aspect. So I work with like musicians, graphic designers, consultants, coaches who may have like online businesses
Gotcha.
that they run, who are doing like app development. And,
Okay.
so yeah, kind of a variety. So.
What do you think has been some of the biggest challenges you've seen within your space among those creatives?
When you say challenges, you mean in terms of their business or?
Yes, definitely the business aspect.
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges I see is just really a lack of information and just not being aware, I guess, of what things or what steps they really need to be taking to build sustainable businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, I know you have a creative background as well, as we talked about in the past. And so, I mean, as you know, when you're kind of in that creative mind space, you're not always thinking about things from a business side when you're is developing, creative content. So I think probably the biggest struggle is just that lack of information and kind of knowing what steps to take when you get to a point where say, you know what, I see all these people out here doing all these things where they're making money with their passion, and I want to do the same thing, but just not knowing.
I think, once again, attorney, you sound very intimidating, right? I mean, because most of us were in, solopreneur startup mode or whatever, side hustle startup mode. So, and when we think of an attorney, we like, I got to have this big deal before I can get an attorney to help me. So when do we need help from someone like you?
So I love that you bring this up, Michelle, because people love to like compartmentalize the legal aspects of their business, right? They're like, oh, I don't have the money for an attorney. I don't have the money for a trademark application. Like, I just don't have the money, right? So I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not even going to think about it. Right. It's just going to be on that permanent to-do list that just over time, right? And so what I do is I try to provide different options for people to at least give them the information that they need. So I offer like different sessions for people who are in that startup phase. Or I have one session specifically for online businesses who are kind of in that either startup phase or you're just now kind of looking at the legal aspects, of your business, just to provide different outlets, because I understand that when you're in the startup phase, you don't have thousands of dollars, to spend on an attorney to actually do the work for you. But there are a lot of economical ways really for you to get things done in your business and have that strong kind of legal foundation that you need to get things, off the ground. So, providing, those options. And your initial question was, what was your initial question again?
I guess my thing is, the traditional sense, and maybe I watch too much TV, but basically we don't have to have an attorney on retainer anymore, right? Like I can go to you for this one thing, a consultation, or maybe I just have one contract, right? A basic agreement that, hey, I'm a graphic designer. Is this a good agreement for me to give to all of my clients? Do I need to customize my agreements? And I think that's the thing. I think we get intimidated. Like, okay, we either need the attorney for this big deal that may come across our table one day, right? Or I don't have enough money. I can't afford a retainer. I mean, I can't afford an attorney because I don't have a monthly retainer to pay that person.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I think that the creative or the legal profession is kind of a little slow to hop on the creative train in terms of finding, ways to meet people where they are. But it's something that I've really tried to do, because a lot of times it's just a matter of people just not being sure. Like you said, okay, I don't have the money for an attorney, but do I really need an attorney for this kind of simple contract that I give to every customer who comes my way? So just our outlets out there for you to at least get the information. Because what I like to do in my sessions it's an opportunity for me to take a look at your business specifically. So it's the only time I can really get specific with you, because I can't get too specific in like a webinar or a presentation. Talking to a big group of people, because you have to be pretty general. People don't know.
That's a good point.
But in those specific sessions, helps to kind of understand what they have going on, give them specific advice, and help entrepreneurs prioritize, right? Like what things they actually need to get done right now. If they don't have the budget for it, what are alternatives for them to direction of getting that stuff taken care of, and things like that. Because I think a lot of times when you're not sure, everything seems important. Like everything seems like a big deal.
Yes.
But, like every part of it, seems so overwhelming and like a big deal. But there are, it's really just about getting that clarity on what you actually need specifically for your business, and looking at, and prioritizing it.
Yeah. So also another thing that I've been reading a lot about, as you know, I'm part of the Houston African American Bloggers Group. Bloggers and just people in general, especially with the way social media is going, there's a lot of stuff going on with people. We're just snagging photos from online. We'll just Google the image, we snag it, we post it, Facebook, Instagram, blog post. Like, what's the deal with that? What's going on? I'm like, no one's going to sue me because I ain't got nothing. But
Hey, you'd be surprised. And it's a lot of people think like that, right? They're like, well, I don't have anything, so come after me. But you even have to be careful with that, because if you don't have your business set up, in a proper way from a legal standpoint, your business may not have anything. But if you don't have any type of shields from your personal assets, then they can still come after you, right? So you wanna be careful with in terms of photos. Yeah, I see it. I see it all the time too, and it's funny because I even have to be careful because I have a blog, and so when I'm doing different posts for the blog, looking for images, but just always looking for public domain registries, or using sites that have Creative Commons license, and making sure you actually read the Creative Commons license. Like those sites have it pretty clear where you can kind of go. I know the site, the main site I use for images, however you say it, they have like a tab where you can read about their Creative Commons license, where you can kind of see how you can and cannot use images. And another thing kind of with photos is, even when you see that the license kind of gives you a right to do a wide variety of things, you always want to make sure that you're also keeping evidence for yourself. People, because you don't always know if what the site is telling you is really accurate for those photos, right? Like, you don't know who took that picture. Like, you don't know if they really gave them this license, right? So as you're doing it, always just be kind of screenshotting and saving things to, at least if someone does try to come against you, that nice cease and desist, at least you have some kind of documentation to show that, like, okay, well, when I downloaded this according to this website, do it. So
okay. That's a good point, because it's kind of tough out here, but that's a good point. Okay. Screenshot the image or the website that you're going to get the image from. Also state the website on where you got the image from, and give that person credit.
You can give credit kind of, again, it depends on the license, because some licenses may still require attribution and some don't. So that's why I say it's important to know exactly what the license is. And then you can get into concepts like fair use, which is like a whole nother podcast episode.
Okay.
So you start talking about, things like that, and fair use, you don't even have to do, an attribution.
Let's see. Earlier you said about pretty much protecting your assets, having a personal shield. I think the common thing is everyone gets an LLC. Like, is the LLC the safest way to go to start? How should I set up my business?
Yeah, I think a a lot of people to be LLC just because it's like easier and they know, like they just hear about it more, so they feel like they understand it more. Every business is different and unique, so it's hard to say what's going to be the best option for you. It doesn't require as much as forming like a corporation, for instance. You don't have to have the same types of meetings, same types of kind of paperwork and documentation to keep up with. So that's why a lot of people prefer, honestly, depending on what you're doing with your business and what the vision is for the business, how you see it growing is really what ultimately would dictate, which business entity you should form. But yes, there's others. There are others, right? Because I hear people, I love people say, should I form an LLC or not? Like as if LLC is the only way to protect your business, right? Or start a business. But I think it's just because it's familiar. So many people talk about it, but there are other business forms like partnerships, limited partnerships.
Let me ask you this. You have prepaid Legal Shield, Legal Zoom. These companies have been around for 10, 20 plus years. Is there a plus to using those, I guess, on a smaller scale, or should we always go to an attorney? Should we always call you? Like, where's the toss-up between a Legal Shield, prepaid legal, and a professional?
Oh, Michelle, I feel like you can open a whole can of worms. Because I feel like, of course, I'm conflicted as an attorney because I'm like, I mean, of course you should see an attorney. But, I mean, the best answer I can give you to that is it's okay as a starting point. Like, if you're trying to kind of get an idea for how a contract should look, what kind of clauses you should have in place. But you just have to be really careful with those services. Because what I see, they may use like LegalZoom to get something trademarked, for instance, right? And with a lot of those services, they'll only do the initial application. You've been through the trademark process at all, any of your stuff, but you know that it's a process, right, where the office will send you correspondence that you have to respond to and things like that. So what'll happen is they'll file the initial application for you. They won't do any of the responses, and so now your application's been abandoned. Now you've wasted money filing it, and now you have to start over.
Ouch.
Right? You just have to. It's just one of those things you have to be careful. I mean, careful is all I can say, because at the end of the day, you don't know exactly who's on the other end of the computer when you're working with these services. I think they provide a good framework in terms of like an educational piece, just to kind of get yourself familiar. Because I will say it's not smart to step into an attorney's office and have no idea of like what's going on from a legal standpoint. I mean, it's just not a good business, so do some research. And I think that those places are good kind of starting points to get you some research and just some general information. And with some things, it may not end up ever being a problem for you, but I just know from experience, people I've dealt with, who've come to me after they tried using a service like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer, where they've had issues. So they can be good, but
well, I appreciate your honesty, because that's the thing. Like, I've never heard that part, right? Like, I haven't gone through the trademark process, so there's a difference between starting something and then being with someone such as yourself, an attorney that's going to walk you through or handle it all together and then provide updates. Because that's the kind of person I like, because I got enough worries. So, how much does it cost for you to handle this for me?
Exactly. And that's what, I mean, a lot of people that I get when they're ready for those one-on-one services, they're at that point where they're like, my business is kind of, I'm doing well, I'm really busy, have a lot going on. I don't even want to think about this. Like, Casey, have at it. I was like, last week I had a meeting with a client, and we, at the end of it, there was like this huge stack of papers. We were having like this conference call, and I was about to hand it back to him because he gave it to me, and he's like, oh no, that's your problem now. I don't. again. So, but yeah, so.
Hey, just a few more questions. Technology is moving at a fast pace. Everyone has an idea, right? Everyone has an idea. Everyone wants to be different. Is there a certain time where, or when is the right time to focus on not, I guess, patents, right? Just a little bit. Just I don't need the law book answer, but it's like, do you create your idea, get the mold up and running, try to make some money, see if you can make some money, and then contact a lawyer? Like, what about that process?
So don't worry, you won't get the law book answer on that because I don't handle patents.
Okay.
So, first of all, I deal with trademarks, copyright.
Right.
I know enough about patents to
Right.
be able to point you, in the right direction. But the thing with a lot of, I guess, kind of like app development or some of these other processes you're creating, you may be surprised that some of it may actually fall under copyright law as opposed to a patent. So I would say that if you have something like truly very unique and original that you're trying to protect, that you definitely seek legal counsel, only because it's right there, right? Like, you don't want to, because something has to be able to be protected under those different things. Like, everything doesn't live up to being able to even receive protection, a patent, right?
Right.
So, or even a trademark, for that matter. So there's different requirements in place in terms of when you should do it. It's really kind of hard to say when you should do it, because just depending on the business and kind of the novelty of what it is you're working with, you may need to do it a lot earlier. What I can say is, in the initial phase, as you're kind of developing it, one thing you definitely would want to have in place would be non-disclosure agreements for people who are that concept or idea, and just having that in place to at least protect yourself in terms of the concepts before you start moving into, patents or copyrights. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Not too long ago, you wrote a blog post on the 3 signs to let us know our bottom line is at risk. So I was just wondering if you can share a little bit of that with the audience.
Yeah, and actually, I think I must have done like a mini blog, I guess, on like Instagram, because I didn't do a full blog post on it. But what it is I created a handout. Okay. It was download from my site where they can get kind of information on these 3 signs. But it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier in terms of people liking to compartmentalize the legal aspects of their business. Putting it off, don't have the time, don't have the money, whatever it may be. And really, that presents a big problem, because a strong legal foundation is really what keeps you profitable. And it's what keeps your bottom line intact. And so when you're missing certain components of that foundation, essentially what you're doing is you're allowing the money that you've worked so hard to get, all the money that you put into the business, to kind of seep through if you don't go in, patch them up, and get that foundation as solid as possible. And so, to answer your question in terms of what are the signs, how you can kind of see this, the first sign is that there's more no's than there are yeses. And what I mean by that is, when you audit your business, point, which is something you should do, periodically. And actually, the handout I mentioned, I actually create like a little 5-minute. I created a 5-minute business audit for people to easily go through and say, okay, I have contracts for every person that I work with. Yes or no. I do a search every time I create a new product. I do a name search for it to make sure I'm not infringing on someone else's rights. And so just kind of a quick little yes or no checklist. And so, I'm sorry, were you
No, it makes sense. It's like, I got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so as you kind of go through that audit, the more no's than you have yeses, then that's a big red flag. that there are definitely things that are putting your bottom line at risk and that you would be liable for. And so you should always have yeses, or it's not applicable, to your business at this time. The second sign, kind of going in line with the audit, is that for every yes, there's uncertainty. And what I mean by that is, you may mark yes on one, say for instance, yes, I have terms of use or terms and conditions on my website, but I'm not really sure if it's makes sense for my business, because really I just kind of copy and pasted this from somebody else's website who has a business very similar to mine. People do it all the time, right? But I mean, so it's kind of so you're like, okay, yes, technically I have it on my website, but I don't know if this is really protecting me and my business the way that it needs to. So anytime that you have kind of that, not really sure how to blast your business, I mean, that's another kind of indication that you potentially have some, your bottom line is at risk, or that you'd be liable. And the third thing is that busyness kind of becomes the safe place for you, right? I think any entrepreneur, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, but any entrepreneur who's been in business for a little while, chances are you already know what stuff you need to get done, right? You already know, kind of where these holes are. As you go through the audit, some of those things are probably already on your to-do list, and you just haven't gotten around to doing them. And so, being busy and working in your business, that you fail to take the time to actually do those things that protect all the hard work that you're putting in and protect, the money and the resources that you're putting into the business. So that's just kind of a quick recap. As I mentioned, if anyone wants to go and download that handout and that audit, you can do so at rightbrainmillennial.com, which is from my main site. But the handout is there where you can download that for your information.
I love it. This is legal. This is law. So, I mean, is there anything else that I have not asked that we need to know on the basic now? Because I know there is, but I know one thing I've learned fairly, maybe a couple of years ago, is that every time we're on a website or we're buying something or we agree to download something and we read the terms and agreements and we click yes, that's a contract.
Yeah.
I don't think people...
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are what you call click wrap agreements. And so you want to make sure that, so again, really every time someone visits your website, you're entering into an agreement with them in terms of what they can and cannot do on your website. So that's why having the terms and conditions, the privacy policies, disclaimers, and everything like that are so important, because your site, there has to be something in place in terms of how they conduct themselves on your site. And this is a really big area, when I work with online entrepreneurs, because, obviously they're selling things. I mean, that's their business is
right.
Online stuff. So just making sure that you're really clear on what people can and cannot do on your site and what they're actually getting from your products and services through the site. So yeah, the click wrap agreements, browse wrap agreements, all that stuff is really important on your website.
Wow. Okay, I know you gave us the rightbrainmillennial.com website, but what are some of the social media platforms, your business website that they can go to if they want to hear more from you?
Yeah, so my main website is thehandylaw.com. That's where you can get information on me and how you could work with me one-on-one legal services. I also have a blog site called handybusinesstips.com, and that's just where I kind of write general information and tips. Michelle, you'd be so proud of me. I'm doing so much better with my consistency. I know you had an episode a few weeks ago, and I was just like, that consistency is... Man. But I do have a blog, and it's a lot more consistent now, where I just offer tips and advice for creative entrepreneurs and other social media. Social media is the same. everywhere. It's Handy Smith, and the ESQ stands for Esquire, for those who don't know. That's another terminology for an attorney. But honestly, the average person doesn't, I don't say the average person, a lot of people don't know. Like, people ask me, like, what's the ESQ? But anyway, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest.
Everywhere. Well, I definitely want to acknowledge you. I've been seeing the hustle. I think, has it been 2 years since we had lunch? I think it was about 2 years since we met at the Urban League, and then after that had lunch.
So we initially met,
So, I mean, you're doing it. I'm on your newsletter. I've been enjoying it, the information. I see you putting yourself out there. You're speaking a lot more. So I'm very, very proud of you. And once again, thanks for being a guest.
Well, thanks again for having me, Michelle. I feel honored to be in the midst of all the great speakers and people that you bring on your podcast. So,
well, in that case, you already know what the final question is. So how do you define success?
Success to me is finding, for whatever life it is that you want to live. So I don't think of success as like careers or money or, I look at success as what are those top values in your life that most to you. And once you get to a point where you can actually always keep those things at the top and prioritize those things, to me that is success. So for me that is my relationship with God, my family. So being able to keep those things as a top priority and not allowing what I do from day to day, in my career, fear. So.
I love it. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, once again, thanks for being a guest. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Remember, I believe in you, and a personal connection leads to an influential network. So thanks for networking with Michelle.